Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Scottish on the home side, half English on the away side, and both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, albeit the Scottish one quite a little bit more frequently than the English one. So when it comes to the Scottish brewery, I would say that back in the day they were best known for their big dark beers and also for their kind of fruity sour things, but in recent times they've diversified quite a little bit and are doing quite a few different styles. The English brewery on the other hand have only featured on the channel maybe 2 or 3 times before, and they are known these days for doing beers with quite a few different adjuncts and things, you know, their pastry stouts, their kind of fruity sours and things like this, but they are very well regarded, and I do need to try a few more of their beers, to be quite honest with you. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one that I'm going to also add to this little mini-series that I've been doing for you, entitled Crazy Beers for 10 Years, to celebrate 10 years of Rampant Lion Reviews being here on YouTube. It's a style that you really don't come across all that often. I think we've only maybe had a handful of these on the channel in the 3,900 reviews that we've done so far, but it is supposed to be a very nice beer actually, this one. I've heard very good things about this. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head up toward Aberdeen, where I used to study chemistry. We're going to go to the northwest of the city, out to Dyce, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Fierce Beer. So this particular beer is from their 5th birthday series that they did, maybe about 2 years or so ago. It's called Very Big Flapjack. It comes in at 11% ABV, and they're describing this one as an oat wine, and it's been brewed in collaboration with Brew York, who are obviously from York in Yorkshire down in England. Now, one thing I will point out about this beer is that it says the best before date was the 23rd of March 2023, but with this one being an 11% oat wine, I'm pretty sure it is going to last a little bit longer than that. But yeah, we reviewed a couple of beers from the 5th birthday series that they did about 2 years ago or something like that, if memory serves me correctly. But they were really nice, and I think this is one that I just put to the side a little bit because I didn't have time to review it when I've been home before. But now we do have time, and I can rediscover this beer at the back of the cupboard. But with, as I say, with it being an oat wine, I'm pretty sure it will have lasted, and it's not often you get to review this style. So I was quite keen to do this one as part of my little 10th anniversary mini-series for you here. So yeah, an 11% oat wine from Fierce Beer up in Dyce near Aberdeen here in Scotland, and Brew York down in York in England. This should be really quite interesting. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Fierce Beer and from Brew York, and we will see about adding more to both of those lists as time goes on. And if you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you show is hugely appreciated. If you want to see more reviews, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging systems. Just go in there, use the little search bar and put in your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, of course, you can check out the playlists of beers from different countries, and you find this one in both the English and Scottish playlist because it is dual nationality, and you can check out the beers from other countries in there as well. There's some really interesting stuff on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about both breweries then. But we'll start off with Fierce Beer, since they are the home brewery in this case. So yeah, Fierce Beer, as I've mentioned already, is based in Dyce, just outside of Aberdeen, and they began life as the home brewing experimentations of David Grant, who had worked for many years in the oil industry. So he'd been home brewing since March of 2013, and after hosting a beer and food pairing dinner in May of 2015, his beer, where his beer received rave reviews from the folk that were there, he decided that it was time to look at going professional. So Dave is joined at Fierce Beer by Dave McGarry, who also worked in the oil industry, but he used his redundance package to put himself on a brewing course at brew lab down in Sunderland in England, which is quite a popular way to get into brewing actually. But in April of 2016, these guys moved into their brewery in the Kirkhill Industrial Estate in Dyce, which is to the northwest of Aberdeen, very close to the airport of course, but at the moment these guys can brew around 800,000 litres of beer per year. So they started canning their beers in early 2018, and they now have their own bar on Ship Row in Aberdeen, quite close to the View Cinema, and this is simply called the Fierce Bar. But they want to move the brewery apparently to a more central location in the city and to have a big brewery and restaurant at some point. At least that was the vision they had a couple of years ago. But these days they've also got a new bar, another bar on Rose Street in Edinburgh, which opened in May of 2019, and another one down in Manchester in England, and both of these seem to be doing really quite well. But in the last few years, they've continued to expand the brewery infrastructure and also develop their barrel program further. And like I said to you, if people were to ask me about this brewery, in the early days, they were best known for their kind of imperial porters and imperial stouts, and just generally speaking, you know, bigger, more malty beers that were barrel aged, and also for their fruity sours. But in recent times, they've been producing a lot of different kinds of IPAs and pale ales and quite a few lagers and things as well, actually, I've seen from them. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 110 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to grow that number as time goes on. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Fierce Beer for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go down then to York in England and we'll have a little look at Brew York then. So Brew York was founded back in 2015 by Lee Graham and Wayne Smith, and apparently it's only one of two breweries within the walls of York City. But the guys were home brewers and apparently inspired by the likes of Northern Monk, Tap Leeds and also Little Creatures from Western Australia. But Lee had previously worked for Aviva, which is quite a big, you know, sort of finance and insurance company, while Wayne worked in construction for Shepherd Group. But the brewery itself is based in the Enterprise complex, and their building was a former storage area for the York Archaeological Trust. But the upstairs in the brewery building is where the start of the brewing takes place, while the mezzanine houses the rest of the brewing equipment and has a bar around it as well. But they've also got an outdoor area there which overlooks the river and the wharf, and they've recently added a shop as well from what I understand. So yeah, this is the main brewery, and apparently this is the place where you should go if you want to try the Brew York beers as fresh as you can get them. But over the years they've continued to build up the infrastructure within the brewery, and they've also opened up a few more bars as well. They've now got the Market Tap in Plockington and the Handley Tap, both of which are in York, and then they've also got another bar in Leeds which is called the Brigate Tap. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 390 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I said to you, if people were to ask me about Brew York, I would say that these guys are probably best known for doing beers with quite a few different adjuncts and things in them. You know, big, fruity, juicy sour beers, pastry stouts, and things like this. But they have done a number of New England hazies and all these kind of things. But yeah, quite an experimental brewery and not scared to try different things. I think that's a very fair statement when it comes to Brew York, of course. But yeah, I think that's everything I can really tell you about Brew York for the moment. We do need to have a little look at some of their other beers on the channel at some stage soon, because this is a brewery that I just haven't come across all that often, to be quite honest with you, being over in the Nordic countries. But yeah, we will need to rectify that soon. But if you want to learn more about these guys, once again, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at this beer itself. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. So I was actually right before when I said that this beer was obviously released in 2021, obviously early 2021. So they've obviously just put like a 2-year best by or best before date on this one actually. But there you can see the Fierce Beer symbol there. And just round here, I'll just turn it the other way, you can see Brew York. But yeah, this kind of artwork is what you'll see quite often on a number of the kind of bigger, more alcoholic Fierce beers, the black with just this kind of metallic colour in there. But as I said earlier, 11% oat wine, a very big flapjack, So when it comes to barley wines, obviously you have variants of these, the wheat wine, the oat wine and the rye wine. I think the general rule with these beers is that if you make, say, 30% of the malt base, oats or rye or wheat, that's what gives you the term wheat wine. I believe that's the general rule, but correct me on that in the comment section below if I am wrong, and you know me to be wrong. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. So it says, very big flapjack, brewed with our pals at Brew York. This beast is similar to a barley wine, but it has a huge amount of oats in there, giving a smooth, soft body. Add to that some caramelly syrupiness, and boom, very big flapjack. So it does say in here that this one contains oats, barley and rye in the malt base, so that'll be quite interesting. But it says on the side here as well, 5 years, 1,826 days, from our first brews in a tiny unit to winning multiple awards at last year's Scottish Beer Awards. It's been quite the journey. So to celebrate our 5th birthday, we've brewed 6 extremely special edition beers. This is number 1, brewed alongside our good friends at New York. So yeah, this should be nice. But let's crack this guy open and see what we get. One of only a handful of oat wines that I've tried here on the channel before. So yeah, this should be pretty good. So I've had very good experiences with the bigger maltier things from Fierce Beer before. So yeah, quite confident this one should be quite nice, and hopefully it's aged quite nicely as well. So I think that's probably about enough beer for the moment to have a proper look at this thing before we actually taste it. So let's do that. Yeah, you can see that the head on this beer has not lasted that much at all, but that's quite often the case with barley wines because they are quite heavy in their alcohol content. But yeah, when it did pour, you could see there was just a kind of thinner layer of a sort of creamy, very light beigey coloured head in there, but you can see it's faded away to be pretty much nothing. You've just got a little kind of bubbly ring around the edge of the glass there, which looks nice. But you can see, if you shine the light through this one, it actually doesn't look too dissimilar to a West Coast IPA or something like that. So for me, the colour of this one, yeah, very similar to like a West Coast IPA. There's that little bit of almost natural haze and that deep kind of rich amber colour to it. There are little bits of sediment particle floating around in this one because this one has been kept cool for like about 2 years, so the fact that there's a little bit of sediment in there shouldn't come as a surprise, to be honest with you. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. That plays a big role actually in barley wines and things like this because you can get these really complex drier notes out of the beer. But then yeah, any adjuncts that you put in or any barleys that you do will affect the colour of it too, and that can play a role with the kind of lighter brown beers like barley wines too. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass here, a few little ones going up toward the surface of the liquid, but not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. So yeah, I don't think we really need to say much more about the appearance of this one. In terms of an oat wine with a little bit of rye in it, this deep sort of amber colour isn't overly surprising, but just going by the colour of this, I don't think this one will have had too long a wort boil, to be honest with you. I think this one's maybe a little bit shorter, but we'll be able to tell a little bit more with actually smelling the beer and tasting it, so I think we should get started on that then. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance, but then again I don't have too much experience with oat wines. So let's have a wee look at that aroma and see what it's going to do for us. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away the aroma of this one, it's actually very, very subtle. It doesn't kind of jump out the glass at you, but at the same time it's really quite nice actually. That's lovely stuff. So for me, it's kind of giving you everything you'd expect. It really is just like a big smoother, kind of more oily and slightly creamy barley wine actually. It's almost like, I would not be surprised, just going from the aroma, I would not be surprised if one of the malts in this is Maris Otter. Because it's like, this beer really just smells like a Maris Otter barley wine. If you did a single malt Maris Otter barley wine, I think this is what it would most likely smell like. Yeah, it's lovely though. So I mean, the beer itself, it's giving you everything you'd expect of the style, to be honest with you. A little bit of, as I say, a little bit of a nice kind of just bready backbone, good little bit of brown sugar, big smoothness to it, a little bit of hoppy character and also a little bit of fruitiness. It's great. But let's try and break that aroma down for you a wee bit more and just describe the flavour more in depth. And of course this review probably will be a bit longer because I'm obviously quite curious about the style and what to think about it. But yeah, the backbone of this beer, you absolutely have a little bit of that, you've got a little bit of a sort of fresh kind of, you've got a little bit of a kind of fresh wholemeal kind of brown bready bread crust in there. That's the backbone of your beer. There's a little touch of woodiness in there, I would say, which is great. Then above that, you've got a little bit of a wholemeal, yeah, you've got a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character. As I said, I do suspect Maris Otter in this quite heavily. So yeah, wholemeal brown bready character in there. A smooth white bready note coming out of this one as well. And it really does give you the kind of brown bready notes that I'm picking out. It does really kind of remind me of like porridge, or just, you know, when you mix milk with oats. It really is quite like that. So yeah, bread crust, wood, little bit of cracker I would say as well. Wholemeal brown bread, a more dense white bready character, but quite sweet at the same time. And then above that, you start to get all of these kind of nice, like brown sugary notes coming out of the beer. Yeah, aroma-wise, this is really quite quirky and interesting, I have to say that. Yeah. So for me, on the brown sugary side of things, this beer doesn't smell as if it's had an overly long wort boil, because otherwise you'd have it would be a bit darker in colour, I would think, for a start, but you would have these bigger, drier, more leathery brown sugary notes coming out of this one, and yeah, I think in that regard, the brown sugars in this one, it's got like a kind of really oily, like McVitie's digestive biscuity base to it, but sweet caramel's definitely there. Werther's original, you know, butter candy, butterscotchy notes are definitely there. So yeah, sweet caramel, Werther's original, sort of butter candy, butterscotch, and then also a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. That's really what I'm getting out of this particular beer. So aroma-wise, this is really quite interesting for me. On the hoppy side of things, you know, barley wines generally do have quite a little bit of hop in them, because they are kind of like the big brother of the double IPA in a sense. This beer, even though it's 2 years old and things, you do still get a fair little bit of green component out of this. I'd be curious to know what hop they've used. Maybe Cascade. So a few things tell me it could be a little bit of Cascade, maybe a little bit of Bramling's Cross from England as well. But yeah, you get a little touch of earthiness out of it. You get a little bit of herbal character, and it's the nature of the earthiness and herbal character that's making me wonder about Bramling's Cross. Bramling's Cross, of course, is quite a popular hop to use with English barley wines in particular. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. You do have a little touch of floral note coming out of this one, but also quite a nice, you've also got quite a nice little bit of grassiness there at the front of the nose too, which is great. I really like how that pieces together in this beer too. Yeah, green component on this one's quite interesting. The fruity side of the beer is also quite interesting too. So I mean, you've got a good little bit of yeah, you do have a good little bit of sort of, yeah, I would say more, you've got a lot of oily pear on the fruity side of things for me. There's a little bit of like a sultana note in there as well. So yeah, oily yeah, you know, sultana, dry white green grapes, oily pear, and there's also a little bit of like a kind of strawberry type note out of this, and I get quite a little bit of that kind of oily strawberry as well. Maybe a little touch of fig or date or something too. As I say, not overly familiar with the oat wine as a style, but these aromas are all quite interesting. If I was to, you know, look at this beer blind without really knowing what it was, I'd probably guess that it was some kind of old ale or something like that. So yeah, I do quite like you know, I'm a sucker for these kind of more brown sugary leaning beers, and I get a feeling this is one that I'm probably going to quite like because the aroma is certainly really interesting. But as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, let's get the rest of this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is quite nice. It should be little bits of sediment in the bottom of the glass there, so we'll need to be careful with that. But it is all natural, of course. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one in and see what it's all about. This is the very big Flapjack, an 11% oat wine, brewed at Fierce Beer in Dyce, just outside of Aberdeen, in collaboration with Brew York down in York in England. Part of Fierce Beer's 5th anniversary release, so let's see how we get on. My first oat wine in a long time. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty nice. And I would say, going by the flavour of this one, it's certainly not out of date. That's for sure. It's kind of given me everything I would have expected. It's one of these beers where the flavour that you actually get matches up with the aroma pretty well. So, where do we start with this? I think the first thing to say is that, as I say, it really fits the aroma. The aroma and the flavour really match together in this one quite well. So yeah, you have got this lovely kind of bready backbone to it. You can feel the denser oats in there on top. A lot of kind of bright brown sugary sweetness. A little bit of hoppy character, then a nice kind of oily, fruity sort of note out of this one. Like I say, pretty much as you would expect from the beer. But yeah, let's kind of break this one down then and describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth. Yeah, so on the middle third of your palate then, we'll start there as we often do. So, that middle third of your palate then, you can feel the backbone of the beer. The backbone of the beer has this lovely kind of smooth, white bready type character to it. So you can feel that smooth, white bready, fresh white bread crust backbone there. So there's a little bit of an almost kind of flowery character in there, which is great. And then on top of that, you get like the wholemeal, brown bready type character coming out of this one. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust. Further forward on that middle third of your palate, there's a little bit of woodiness in there. Then on top of that, yeah, you get the wholemeal kind of brown bready character. You can feel within that, it does have a little bit of that kind of more caramelised rye bready sort of thing, but not too much. Maybe it's right to say the base layer is brown bready bread crust. It's right to say it's kind of brown bready bread crust. On top of that, you've got a more rye bready sort of bread crust. The wholemeal brown bread on top of that. Then you've got a really nice, and as I say, above that, you start to get the kind of white bready notes out of this one. Just going from the flavour, I do really wonder if Maris Otter has been used in this as well. So yeah, in the middle third of the palate, you can feel that nice kind of brighter, that kind of white bready character coming out of this one. It's, yeah, quite light and quite, well, I say light, it's actually quite a dense white bread. and it's almost like it's been infused with a little bit of yeah, it's almost like it's been kind of infused with a wee bit of a kind of sweet, brown sugary, buttery sort of thing. So yeah. Yeah. The way that the brown sugary note comes out of this one too is really nice. So yeah, above that kind of sweet white bready layer, you do start to get the brown sugars coming out of the beer, and the brown sugary layer in this one is quite interesting because the base layer of it, it's like it's very slightly toasty, like a very light toasty brown sugary character. Then above that, you start to get a wee bit of you have like an oily circle in the middle third of your palate, so you can feel the base of that. It's like a very slightly leathery caramel. So maybe the beer has had a slightly longer wort boil, but I think it's about 5-6 hours, something like that. Maybe, I don't know if that would be classed as a long wort boil, but in fairness, I don't think it's maybe that long. Maybe 3 or 4 hours. So you do get a little bit of that leathery brown sugary nature that you want out of like a kind of barley wine type beer of this ABV. So yeah, you've got the toasty biscuity layer, then on the base of that circle you've got the kind of leathery brown sugar, then you get a layer of like Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch, and in the dead centre of your palate you've got that straight up sweet caramel, which is obviously the which is the concentration of the alcohol. Now the thing with this beer is that's interesting, the more I reflect on that middle third of your palate, I think the kind of density of the bread, the density of the white bread, that's the oat part of the malt base that's in there. Yeah, that's the thing that's really interesting about this one for me. I do really like how that pieces together in this beer. But yeah, the middle third of your palate in this one is really quite nice. I do like how everything just kind of slots together with that. Yeah, I like that with this one. So, for me, what else can we say about... I don't think we can say anything much more about the middle third of your palate with this one. I think we should move on to the back third of your palate with the beer. So, like I've said, generally speaking with your palate, the sweeter flavours will come out further forward and the more dry bitter flavours will come out further back. But between the middle and back third of your palate, you'll get very similar flavours out of those, just at different intensities. So, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. The base of that back third of your palate is a little bit more... you know, it's a little bit more kind of, I would say, like a sweet wholemeal brown bread and a kind of white bread sitting above that, which is great. Then the base of the back third of your palate, again, you've got that kind of white bready bread crust coming out of this one, which just feels a little bit drier. You've got a sort of slightly crackery layer above that. Then you get the kind of the sweet wholemeal brown bread. You get the lighter white bread above that, and you can feel some of the kind of more dense oats just sitting on top of that, the drier, more dense oats in there. It does have a little bit of an almost like porridgey type quality to it, this beer, the further into the aftertaste that you go. But like I said, from the bready notes that you get out of this beer, I would not be surprised if Maris Otter is one of the main barley malts that's been used in this. But above everything else, you can feel a little bit of the drier brown sugar just creeping over the top of that back third of your palate as well, and I think that goes together really nicely in this one too. But above everything else on the back third of the palate, you start to get the yeasty notes out of the beer. So yeah. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting because it feels like this really highly dense sweet brown bready character. Then it's kind of just wrapped in this like sweet caramel honeycomb type thing. That's really wrapping it around there, and it's got a little bit of a kind of almost biscuity outlier to it. So the yeasty side of this beer is really quite interesting from that particular perspective. But definitely, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I like that with this one. But I think that's everything we need to say about the middle and back third of your palate now. So let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer, the green component. In the back corners of the palate, you do get a nice little touch of smooth earthiness there. As you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal. As I say, it still makes me wonder a wee bit about, yeah, it really makes me wonder a little bit about kind of about Bramling's cross being used in this one. But as you move further forward, it gets a little bit more kind of floral. There's a wee touch of like a floral aromaticity on the front corners of your palate. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and it's quite like a wet, almost leafy grassiness that you get just round the front curve of your palate. But let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and just see the just talk about the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, fruity. The front third of your palate then, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. You can feel the kind of sweet brown bready character underneath. Then you get the more dense, almost like porridgey like white bread sitting on top of that. But then the base of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of bread crust in there again. A bit of the kind of wholemeal brown bready character, then the dense sort of like porridgey white bread sitting above that. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on those fruity esters for the moment. So yeah, for me, the fruity esters you get with this beer are kind of what you would expect from the aroma. Again, like at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of you get a little bit of the sort of oily, you get the sultana in there. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of sultana type quality. Underneath that, well, sultana's maybe at the bottom, so there's definitely some sultana, you know, dry white green grape. There's a little bit of a datey sort of thing. As you move further forward on the palate, you start to get this big oily pear. And then yeah, as you move into the kind of front, the oily pear kind of sits there in the middle of that front third of your palate. And then as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's kind of like there's a little touch, there's a very slight touch of fig in this one, and a little bit of blackcurrant. But yeah, there's a little bit of fresh green apple just sitting on top of that. So yeah, it's like sultanas, oily pear, maybe a very slight touch of date as well. Then in the front half of that front third of your tongue, a little touch of blackcurrant, a little bit of fig, and a wee bit of fresh green apple on top of that. But yeah, very oily, sort of peary, datey, sultana-like fruits coming out of this one for the most part. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, I think that's pretty much everything we really need to say about this one, to be honest with you. Like I say, it's a really nice beer, this. I do like this, but it's very sweet and it's definitely a sipper, so I'm kind of glad I'm going to share this one with my dad after the review. But yeah, I can see that the name Very Big Flapjack, it kind of makes sense in a way. It is, this beer really does have that like maple syrupy waffle or flapjack type quality to it, and it's really interesting from that perspective. It's quite different, as I say. You don't come across too many oat wines, or rye wines. You know, you'll find a wheat wine every so often, but yeah, huge fan of the barley wine, and to see an oat wine for only the second or third time on the channel, I think is quite interesting. And that was one of the things that attracted me to this beer. But I like this one. As I say, it's just a slow drinker just because of how sweet it is. But yeah, really nicely done, so big thumbs up to Fierce Beer for this one. I think they did a really good job of it. So yeah, definitely cool to have another Brew York beer on the channel too. But I think we can leave it at that for the tasting side of things. On the mouthfeel side of the beer then, let's have a wee look at that. So for me, the beer is really quite, it's definitely, in terms of mouthfeel, I think it's kind of mid-range, full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely big sort of silky, oily type mouthfeel to it, which is great. And that's kind of what you would expect from an oat wine. Any beer that contains oats is always going to be a little bit kind of smoother and kind of creamier. So yeah, you have this oily, kind of slightly silky type quality to this one. In terms of IBUs, it's a bit hard to place with this one. It does feel as if it's got a little bit of bitterness to it, but again, because the beer's about 2 years old, over 2 years old, probably nearer 2.5 years old, a lot of the hoppy bitterness has dropped out of this one, but I don't think this beer is intended to be a high calculated IBU in the first place. So yeah, you've got a lovely kind of smooth green component to this one, a little bit of wetter, kind of more bitter character as well. But yeah, I think that goes together really quite nicely with this one. Yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, the IBU count is quite low, as I said. Guess what, with 25 or 30 IBU, maybe 30 I think is probably a better bet, but it's not overly high. The malt base has a little bit of graininess and dryness underneath, lovely kind of smooth, lovely kind of smooth character in the middle, and then you've got a good little bit of kind of sweetness on top of it. So yeah, the way that goes together is really nice and gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so you got, I would say, dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, the sweetness on the top. We talked about the hoppy green component and things, and the fruity side of this beer, really oily. It has a little bit of dryness out of it, which I do quite like too. So really interesting mix of flavours going on with this one, and it gets a big thumbs up from me in that particular regard too. So yeah, really just this beer has been a really interesting learning experience for me. I think we can say that. But a very oily, sweet thing that is going to be a sipper, and I'm going to share this with my dad. So yeah, if you get a can of this, I think you should be prepared to open it when you've got a friend to share with, because it's really quite sweet. It is a nice beer, but yeah, 440 mils of this to yourself is pushing it a little bit. 200 or so, it's about right, just for a nice wee sipper kind of thing. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the very big Flapjack, an 11% oat wine, brewed at Fierce Beer in Dyce, just outside of Aberdeen, in collaboration with Brew York from York in Yorkshire down in England. Really interesting beer, this one, and it certainly has tested my palate a little bit. So if you like big, kind of sweet, brown sugary things, you will enjoy this, and the name is quite apt for the sort of flavours you get out of this. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both Fierce Beer and Brew York, and we will see about returning to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.